Alexandria Ocasio Cortez is the textbook definition of a snake in the grass as it pertains to her political relationship with Black Americans. She is a protege of Bernie Sanders, and she pulls from the tree of Bernie, to which she has no problem weaponizing Black suffrage and the Black experience in order to further her political agenda. But when it comes to supporting policy that will specifically benefit Black Americans, she doesn't support that. Just like Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders goes out of his way to avoid Black politics, and Alexandria Ocasio Cortez does exactly the same thing. Now, here's a quick example of Bernie Sanders ducking and dodging anything that has to do specifically with Black Americans.
I also want to ask you about the South. I mean, in 2016, you ran basically equal with Hillary Clinton everywhere in the country except the South, where she really ran the table against you. That seems to be happening again. You didn't reach even 20% of the African-American vote anywhere in the South. In North Carolina, you actually did worse. You did 19% with African-American voters in 2016. That dropped 2 points last night. What is going wrong with your campaign when it comes to competing in the South and competing specifically for Black voters?
Well, let me just give you the other side of the story, is that in California, if my memory is correct, we received 39% of the votes of people of color, which were Latinos, Asian Americans, and African Americans. If I am not mistaken, I haven't studied these results, we probably won the young people African American vote, probably in all of those states.
But in California, you're being well outpaced by Joe Biden among Black voters.
Well, we are winning among people of color in a very significant degree.
Let's talk about Black voters, though, specifically, because it has been a persistent problem. You knew it was a problem in 2016. It might have cost you the nomination then, but it hasn't gotten better.
Now, here's an example of Alexandria Ocasio Cortez being asked a very direct question as it pertains to her support for reparations for the descendants of American slavery. I want you to witness the way in which she severely fumbles this question due to the fact that she does not support reparations for the descendants of American slavery, but because it would be political suicide for her to outright say no, like a Republican Mitch McConnell, she has to make an attempt to talk in circles, but she fumbles so badly to the point that her answer is wildly incoherent.
So the political conundrum is that if we live in a country that's still 70% white, which is a number that I think shocks a lot of people, but if you include white Hispanics, it actually is that big, who often vote similarly to non-Hispanic whites. What is a political cost, let's say, of saying we're going to throw your hat in with a program like reparations? How much do you think those considerations should be made?
Well, it's a good question. I think that one of the things that we've seen from early polling actually is that I think that we should distance ourselves and start getting away from this idea that we should only care about ourselves. Because when we really do start to assert and believe and understand and see how our destinies are tied, we kind of get away from this idea that only people of color care about other people of color and only white people care about other white people and so on. There are a lot of systems that we have to dismantle, but also it does get into this interesting area of where we are as a country about identity, because what does it mean to be Black? Who is Black and who isn't, especially as our country becomes more biracial and multiracial. Same thing with being Latino. Same thing. It brings up all these questions of passing and things like that. But I do think it is important that we have to have substantive conversations about race beyond what is racist and what is not. And if someone says something racist, does that make them racist? We need to get away from talking. Well, not that we have to get away from talking about racism. It's important that we talk about racism, but because we talk about racism so much, we actually aren't talking about race itself.
What is this woman talking about right now? Nothing that she said made any sense. And not only did it not make any sense, it was wildly disrespectful. What's Black? What does that mean really? We're talking about race, but not really talking about race? What is she talking about? Now, with all that being said, let's fast forward to the current date, to which Alexandria Ocasio Cortez has made a very bold attempt to hijack the reparations conversation in order to include Brown in the conversation so that they can receive reparations for a tragedy that they did not go through. Now, this is what AOC had to say, according to the New York Post, that took these quotes off of her Twitter feed. COVID deaths are disproportionately spiking in Black and brown communities, Ocasio Cortez tweeted to her 6 million followers on Friday morning. Why? Because the chronic toll of redlining, environmental racism, wealth gap, etc. are underlying health conditions, the Bronx-born lawmaker added. Inequality is a comorbidity. Oh, she's breaking out the big words now. When people like this start using words that the average man and woman does not use in everyday conversation like Michael Eric Dyson does, that's how you know it's about to follow up with some foolishness. And here comes the foolishness. And I quote, "COVID relief should be drafted with a lens of reparations," she wrote. Oh, now you know what reparations is, huh? You see, when reparations is a talking point that only benefits the descendants of American slaves, she doesn't know what black is anymore. She doesn't know what that means. But when she can find a way to crowbar her people into the mix so that they can receive reparations, now she's all for it, piggybacking off of black suffrage in order to receive reparations for something that you did not go through. This is that black-brown political unity that you've been hearing about so much. You see, it only works out when other people get the benefit off of your suffrage. But if it just comes down to the descendants of American slaves only benefiting, then that unity goes away and you can't get my support. Now, that's all for today's show, so be sure to hit the subscribe button as well as the bell notification next to the subscribe button so you can be notified whenever I release a new video. Also, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at tdhiphopmedia. That is on Twitter at tdhiphopmedia. And if you've been following this channel for quite some time now, make sure you show some love and support on the Patreon. Remember, for only $5 a month, that can help put me in position to which I can take TD Hip Hop Media off of YouTube and become a legitimate independent media platform. Remember, the goal is not to grow big on YouTube, but it's to grow independent of YouTube. And with that being said, peace.